Um, Hello everyone, thank you for being here. I'm Jérémie Zimmermann. I'm the co-founder and spokesperson of the citizen organization La Quadrature du Net. La Quadrature du Net is a kind of citizen toolbox. We're basically a bunch of activists with quite some experience with legislative process, and we are providing tools for citizens, for everyone, to understand what is going on when fundamental freedoms are threatened on the internet, and tools for everybody to participate in the public debate, in the democratic debate, to make one's voice heard in those issues. We've been very much active in France and in Europe on the EU level, on the European Parliament in the last months and years. And you may have heard of the nefarious ADOPI law in France, or the telecoms package on the EU level, or ACTA. You'll hear more about ACTA later on. And what I want to discuss with you today is this very disturbing trend of copyright law to be used more and more as a tool to hurt our fundamental freedoms, to hurt our freedom of expression, to hurt our privacy, to hurt our right to a fair trial, and to discuss together on how we might find ways to counter this, how we might build tools together to collectively address those issues. So, we're in the mindset of the entertainment industry where the whole world is covered by a bunch of pirates, and we have to imagine, for a moment, we have to imagine that a myth that is widely spread is for real. It's like the Santa Claus exists. No, we have to believe that pirates exist. That pirates are those evil people who don't like culture, who don't like artists, who kill the artists, who kill the industry. And we have to believe for one moment that file sharing is literally killing music, killing the arts, and killing movies. So, when those industries realized what was going on with the internet and with Napster in '99, you remember the story? They tried, first of all, to sue individuals, to go to courts, to hire very expensive lawyers, and to try to get examples of court decisions where people would be convicted, where people would be found guilty of piracy, harming, hurting, killing, and so on. And they thought that this would lead to people just stopping doing it. Well, you all know the rest of the story. So far, it's an epic fail, as we say on the internet. And so the individual suing of people was a failure. So this was the version 0 point something, let's call it 0.1 or 0.2 of the war against sharing that those industries are waging right now. Then, along the years, they came with new ideas of schemes. Then there was the election of Nicolas Sarkozy in France. When Sarkozy was elected, John Kennedy was the head of IFPI, that is the main worldwide lobby for recording industry, said, oh, with this guy, we have a champion that will promote our ideas. So, when Sarkozy got elected, they had a way to experiment with their new scheme. You all heard of the ADOPI law, the 3 strikes law. Who among you didn't hear about the ADOPI law? There's quite a few. Well, you don't miss anything. All you have to know is that you don't want one at home. Well, in that scheme, the entertainment industry thought it could subvert the resources of a state in order to make justice more efficient in their view, more faster, and get more decisions. Therefore, people would be more dissuaded of sharing. So in the scheme of ADOPI, you have some kind of administrative authority. So it's not a court, it's not a judicial authority, it's an administrative body that gets complaints from the entertainment industry itself, so that's private actors from the entertainment industry that sends complaint to that administrative body. That administrative body sends an email saying, oh, what you're doing is wrong, you should stop, and so on. And then if it continues, it sends a mail, a physical paper mail made of dead wood. And then if it continues, in the first version of the law, the administrative authority sent an order to the internet service provider of that person in order to cut off that person from the internet. Literally, cut the wire, disconnect that person from the internet. And so this is why you see this mortuary bunch of flowers here. It's because this is an epic fail also by itself. The Constitutional Court of France, the Conseil constitutionnel, gave a decision. It was a real long-term political battle for years that we led against the government to make everyone understand clearly that the cutoff of internet access is in no way a sanction that could be taken in a democracy. We also made them understand quite a few points about having administrative authority giving sanctions, about having private corporate actors collecting evidence, and so on and so on. And then, when the law was voted, the Constitutional Court issued that decision. I encourage all of you to take a look at the paragraph 12 of that decision that you can find by its reference 2009-580. In that decision, the highest jurisdiction of a small country named France said, given the importance of internet for the democratic participation and the expression of ideas and opinions, freedom of expression implies freedom to access to the internet. So this is what we won in the political battle of the Hadopi. This is very important for us and for the future of our actions, indeed. And therefore, saying that, the Constitutional Court said, so access to the internet is mandatory for freedom of expression. Therefore, you cannot have an administrative authority that would restrict freedom of expression. It has to be the judge. Therefore, it overturned the law and removed the sanctioning power from that Hadopi administrative authority. So, you all heard of Nicolas Sarkozy and his personality of not being able to listen to anyone and just doing his stuff. So the government came back with a new law, the Hadopi 2, the return of the vengeance of the administrative authority, when the whole process is the same, but in the end, instead of ordering the sanction, the Hadopi sends the dossier to a higher level, to the judge, to the judicial judge. So it is supposed to be compliant with the constitutional decision. Well, this is why we think Hadopi is dead wood at the moment. It's because they're trying, barely trying to make it work. So for 1 year, they've been sending emails. The budget of Hadopi is 12 million euros a year out of French taxpayers' money. So they mostly hire a communication service that make press releases and sends flyers to schools and things like that to say, sharing is bad. Kids, don't do this at home. And so we make that bet. We are convinced that the day the Hadopi would eventually try to send a dossier to the judge will look at the thing, put it in the trash can, and say, now you come back with evidence that those IP addresses, strings of 0 and 1s collected by private actors, are in no democracy any kind of evidence. So this is our bet. The bet of Hadopi is that by influencing people, by making them afraid, by sending all those emails saying, oh, you will risk so much, you will be cut off, whatever, people will just be scared of it. So as long as people are not scared of Hadopi, Hadopi doesn't work. And this is why we say that this is an epic fail. Well, this is an ongoing epic fail on a political point of view for the French government at the moment. So this was version, let's say, 1.0 of their policy against sharing. And this is failed. In no other country than France such a policy will be put in place. It costs a lot. It costs a lot to the taxpayers, but it also costs a lot politically. Everybody who watched this carefully saw that the French government took blows and blows and blows. We talk with members of the parliament that say to us that even today, right-wing members of the parliament, that say to us that when they go to the marketplaces on the Sunday morning, just to shake hands and show how beautiful their smile is and how nice it would be to have them re-elected someday, when they shake hands, they have young people coming at them and saying, "Why did you vote Adopi? Why did you vote Adopi?" It was really, really a strong political, social debate in French society. And when you talk privately with the members of the right-wing majority, they use Adopi as an example of a bad law that is being force-fed to them and that they are forced to vote. So, you're in the shoes of the entertainment industries, and you tried to sue individuals, didn't work. You try to change the policy of a whole state, to subvert the means of a state, to make all this go faster, more efficiently, and so on, but it failed. Then, what you do as a next step is the version 2.0 of this scheme. How many among you have heard of ACTA? Wow, that's quite a lot already. So maybe you know already all I'm saying already. ACTA is a wonderful on a cynical perspective, but it's a very obvious example of how those industries are powerful and how they're able to subvert democracy, to bypass democracy, to circumvent public opinion in order to have what they want. So ACTA is, well, it's a very complex issue, it's a very complex dossier, but this is something we can really hold up in the air as a smoking gun, as an evidence of what those industries are doing to our societies and to our democracies and to our legal system. So ACTA, for the few of you who didn't hear about it so far, is the Anti-Counterfeiting Trade Agreement. So it is supposed to be a trade agreement, hence the name. Trade agreements are those agreements that states strike together. Like, for instance, when the US go to some African country and say, okay, we continue to buy your cocoa or coffee or whatever, but you will sign this agreement about selling your oil and whatever expensive thing we need to build mobile phones or something to us. So usually trade agreements involve trade, the trading of goods. But in the case of ACTA, it is mostly about copyright, patent, and trademark issues. Initially, ACTA is about border measures, so what custom officers can do on the border to, when goods enter the country or leave the country, try to block containers of stuff or whatever. But right from the beginning, we heard that ACTA would also involve legislation regarding the internet. So for sometimes we were in some kind of haze, some kind of fog. We didn't have access to anything that was into the ACTA agreement because it was negotiated in secret. Since the end of 2006, it was negotiated by 39 countries, including the 27 member states of the EU, represented by the European Commission. And so we couldn't know what was happening into it until WikiLeaks leaked some version of the text, some draft version of the text, something like early 2008, during the year of 2008. So we saw in those leaks what ACTA was trying to do with the internet, and this got confirmed over time. It was very difficult to go and talk to the politicians about it. When we talked with the negotiators of ACTA, they were talking to us in a very rude or condescending manner, saying, yeah, but those leaks you're talking about, we don't even know if they're real or not, and we won't authenticate them anyway, so yeah, get the fuck out of it, was the basic message. So we had to go and convince members of the European Parliament, so they put pressure on the European Commission. So ultimately, some draft version of the agreement were officially published. And then we could know what we were talking about. So I'm talking end of 2009, early 2010. And so the scheme of those industries, when the enforcement on the level of individual fails, you remember, you go to the state level to try to optimize it, to make it more efficient, but it fails as well. Therefore, the objective is to push enforcement closer to the core of the network. Enforcement as close as possible of the network itself, of the core of the network itself. So I'm going to show you some boring stuff for a moment to explain to you what ACTA is about. You see here an article that is Article 23, so this is the final text of the agreement, because an agreement was reached by the end of 2010. ACTA brings, for the 39 countries we negotiated it, new criminal offenses, new criminal procedures and penalties to be applied at least in cases of willful trademark counterfeiting or copyright or related rights piracy on a commercial scale, and ensure that criminal liability for aiding and abetting is available under its law. So it sounds like bullshit legalese, and it is mostly. But what this means, well, first of all, copyright piracy on a commercial scale so far didn't mean anything in law, in any kind of legislation. But you understand that this very notion of a commercial scale means about anything. If 1 million people share one file, then one can argue that, well, this is commercial scale. If one makes a website that allows users to do something and then earns money through advertisements, well, this is commercial scale. If you create a new service or whatever that allows people to remix videos, and then thousands of people use it, then it's a commercial scale as well. So this is a very, very broad scope for something that is criminal sanction. So this is something where prison is usually involved. And you can see that it has to apply criminal liability for aiding and abetting. So aiding and abetting, once again, is something extremely broad. When you're an internet service provider, for instance, one could argue that you are abetting the use of BitTorrent to your users. When you're YouTube and you allow your users to put whatever video they want to put on it, you can argue that you are aiding copyright infringement on a commercial scale. So this is really the 2.0 version of the war on sharing. You make such a weight, you make such a burden of a risk of very high penalty to weight on the intermediates of the internet, which is the internet service providers, the internet access providers. You make them liable for whatever the users may be doing. So this is what is really the key to that debate at the moment. Usually the internet companies cannot be made liable for what the users are doing. But with ACTA, with this new trend in copyright enforcement, you literally make them liable for whatever the users are doing. So you literally turn them into some kind of private copyright police. For more boring legalese, you see here that each party shall ensure blah 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 expeditious remedies to prevent infringement and remedies which constitute a deterrent to further infringement. So I don't know if among you are people with technical background, but people with a technical background could try to imagine what would be, in technical terms, a deterrent to further infringement. Further infringement, by definition, are infringement that didn't happen yet, that may happen. So what is clearly aimed for in this kind of text is the filtering of content, the automating of filtering of content, the automating of removal of content, or blocking or access, or very extreme measures like this. So with this agreement, with this text, the objective, I told you, is to turn internet companies into private copyright cops in order to make them use whatever method is available, including filtering of content, including the removal, automatic removal of content, and so on and so on. So one meme, one bit of text that we see all around in those policies those days, that is part of that 2.0 scheme to make the war against sharing and the war against the public, is this notion of promoting cooperative efforts within the business community to effectively address trademark and copyright or related rights infringement. So you understand that this notion of cooperative efforts, that are also called voluntary agreements, or in the UK, a memorandum of understanding, is a way of making these companies to comply with the objective of setting up those policies. So it's literally like putting a gun on the head of somebody and say, yeah, please do voluntarily sign this paper. This is the kind of cooperation. So this is a very disturbing trend. First of all, because all of this wasn't debated in a democratic way. That was, I think, the objective. Because when you look at the debate there was in France, for instance, with the Adopi law, you understand that those issues of what shall be done or not with the internet are extremely fundamental, are linked to the fundamental freedoms of individuals, are something that is very, very important. Therefore, you try to avoid a debate on it. And this is how the whole ACTA was done, the whole ACTA was crafted. So, the question is, what this would mean for the internet, what this would mean for our everyday lives. You've seen maybe this image before. Several times in the last month, the US Department of Justice issued orders directly to the ICANN that manages the .com, .org, .net domains, to make them remove some domains from the internet in the name of copyright. There were torrent sites or whatever, watch replica selling sites, whatever things that were infringing on copyright or trademark or whatever. So this is a very clear example when, for some reason, for copyright, trademark reason, you pressure an intermediary of the internet in order to force them to remove a whole part of the internet. This is literally parts of the internet being shut down without anybody being able to do anything about it. So this is the kind of actions that those industries want the intermediates to take. This is one example among many. And this is what must make you think of what would be the internet if copyright, trademark, and patents were a pretext that could use such actions. Well, actually, you have a very good example here at Republica, because there is no internet. So you can all see what it is and how difficult it is to be without internet and without bits of the internet. But this is a very serious matter. And we have to ask ourselves what to do about it. So there is one part of an answer that lies in the European Union institutions. The ACTA agreement has a final step before it can enter into force in the EU, which is a vote by the European Parliament. The whole European Parliament will have to say yes or no to ACTA, and this will be a historical occasion for all of us to participate into rejecting it, into having it rejected. So we don't know yet when this vote will happen, possibly before the summer break, most probably after. This is a new procedure since the Lisbon Treaty, where the whole Parliament will have to vote yes or no. There will be no other possibility for amendments or anything, yes or no. So stay tuned, subscribe to the RSS feed or Twitter feed of La Quadrature du Net, or whatever, or stay tuned to Netzpolitik or other sources of information about those issues. And this is one occasion we will have to defeat such policies. But on the issue of ACTA, the EU might be the key, might be useful for us to win, but also there are very disturbing process going on within the European Commission. The Market General Directorate of the European Commission, held by the French Commissioner Michel Barnier. Once again, I'm sorry, it's always France that. Anyway, the Market DG of the Commission is right now working at the revision of the copyright framework of the EU, namely the IPRED directive. It's called IPRED for Intellectual Property Rights Enforcement Directive. It's a 2004 directive that broadens the scope of what should be considered as copyright enforcement. And when the Commission initiates the revision of such a directive, it doesn't ask itself, maybe we did it wrong, maybe we should go backwards, maybe there is another way than blind enforcement in the digital environment. No, no, no. It asks, how could we go further? How could we target more the internet? How can we be more enforceful? How can we enforce more? And so there is a process already going on. When the Commission launched its consultation, the questions asked to the general public were literally, do you think we need more tools like what is in ACTA? Do you think we need more criminal sanction? Do you think we should ask more to the internet companies to do the police themselves on the network? So it is a constant process. The influence power of those industries is extremely strong and goes to the highest level of the EU institution. So it is very nice to think of the European Parliament as a democratic institution. It is one. It is the only democratic institution in the European Union. But we have to keep in mind that the co-legislator with the European Parliament is the Council of the EU, representing the member states, that is completely opaque and completely inaccessible to us. And we must also keep in mind that the Commission is this administrative body that takes the initiative of the laws, and that through its market DG at the moment is literally taking steps like the ACTA to change the internet into some kind of copyright police. So this is one part only of the answer, which is acting towards the EU institutions, trying to make things change in the text, within the legislation. And another thing we have to keep in mind is that, as I told you earlier, all that relies on meme, on a myth. The myth of the pirates. The myth that file sharing is hurting the economy. The myth that file sharing harms sales. And you can see it as, even in the ACTA itself, this is another boring part of the ACTA. This is the damage section. The ACTA goes as far as saying that the judges will have to consider any legitimate measure of value the right holder submits, which may include lost profits, the value of the infringed good or services measured by the market price, or the suggested retail price. They have to make those 39 countries agree together that when the industry will come to a judge and say, oh, look, that kid downloaded 1,000 movies, the price of a DVD is 20 euros, therefore 1,000 multiplied by 20 is 20,000 euros. That kid cost the industry 20,000 euros. This is exactly what it says. So, if they are forced today, if they feel obliged to write this in the legislation, if they feel forced to make this become the truth that way, then it shows a weak spot. And I think it shows exactly where we have to strike them, where we have to retaliate. Because we all know that this is wrong, that this is not true. We all have experience, either direct experience with file sharing or people among us who downloaded the 1,000 movies, and we all know they wouldn't have bought 1,000 DVDs. Or maybe we have experienced by ourselves or by others that people who do file sharing are actually not that bad clients for those industries. I show you here one figure from oh, I didn't source that image, which is very, very wrong. Okay, so you'll have to send me an email and I'll give you the source of this study, and well, I'll give you the source of this study and other studies. That shows that literally since the year of Napster, you can see the dotted line here, represent Napster. So you can literally see that since Napster, the number of concert performance literally boomed in the US. It is exactly the same in Europe at the moment. You can also see that the album sales went up and down, exactly like the vinyl sales went up and down, like the cassette sales went up and down, and so on and so on. Every new product goes up and at some point peaks and then goes down. And so, as you can see here, as you will see in many other studies I source this time afterwards, everybody who is not linked to those industries and make a study, and make independent study on the issue, shows that the economy is not hurt that badly. That maybe the CD sales are going down, but there are some other parts of economy that are going up. This is the concert sales, this is the ticket sales for the cinema, this is the sale of iPods or other MP3 players, this is the sale of video games. And so if you just look at the data, you see that what the industry is saying is just plainly wrong. This is part of a study that was literally commissioned by the Adopi itself. You can see its logo on top. So this is the administrative body I told you about earlier from the French government that is supposed to track down the evil file sharers that are so much hurting sales. And what it shows is how much people spend for cultural goods. In red are the people who have a so-called illegal use of the internet, and in blue, the people who have a legal use. And you can see that the first ones are people who do not spend at all for culture. People who do file sharing are so few compared to people who do not do file sharing. People who spend from 9 to 19 euros, you can see that the people who do file sharing are spending more. 20 to 30, 31 to 99, and you can see that the people spending more than 100 euros a month are 9% among the people doing file sharing, as opposed to 5% among the people who do not. So, and this is confirmed by a study from the government of Canada, by a study from the government of Netherlands, by a study from the Ipsos Institute in Germany, and so on and so on. And you can find all those studies. It's a non-exhaustive compilation that you can find at this URL that shows literally that people who do the more file sharing are the people who spend the more money. Those are studies that shows also that file sharing might have a very small impact on the drop of sales of physical goods, if not a neutral impact, and some studies even conclude to a positive impact. The most detailed ones show that there would be a small impact on the artists that sell the more, a neutral impact on most artists, and a positive impact on the artists that sell the less. So that file sharing would be some kind of progressive tax that will take more money from people who already sell a lot, and that would give back money to people who don't sell much. So I don't ask you to believe that 100%, to be convinced by that. But even if you don't believe it, just consider that there is a margin for a doubt. That what the industry is saying may not be completely true. That when they say that file sharing is just killing the world and the artists and everything and there's blood on the walls, it may not be true. So I think this is one very important spot, a very important weak spot where we can hit them. We can take those figures, we can make them more explicit, more public. We can educate, so to say, our elected representatives, journalists, the general public. And we can work collectively to counter this meme from the industry that file sharing is a bad thing. Actually, all those figures, all those studies demonstrate that sharing helps culture. And it's something that we know, that we feel inside. When you like a record, when you like a book, what do you do with it? Do you lock it down, or do you try to lend it to as many people you like? When you like reading, do you go to libraries where people share books? Or do you just stay in your room with your own books? It is evident in every major step of history. We have witnessed that the more culture is spread, the more it is alive. Think of all the so-called modern arts movements in the 20th century. Since of the surrealists, since of Fluxus. Everybody who innovated, who created new things out of culture, got inspiration from previous works, got inspiration from the peers. Nobody can create out of nothing. This is a myth. This is something that is simply untrue. So this is, once again, I think, some very simple idea, a very simple political message that we can spread, that we can build all together to counter that influence from the entertainment industry. It's all about sharing. They call it stealing, looting, pirating, thieving, killing, whatever. It is all about sharing. And there is no culture without sharing. So, the situation is that today we have a relatively open and free, therefore neutral internet between our hands. We still have that freedom of expression that is allowed by this internet. We can, you see the example of the Arab Spring. We can build movements, we can organize events that can have an impact on whole political regimes, that can literally change societies. And we have industries that literally want to destroy that want to destroy that capability of everyone to use the internet, to share, and to participate in culture, and to participate in society. So ask yourself what you should do with the internet, what you should do with your blog, with your Twitter feed, with all those digital tools you have between your hands. We have to make it clear for everyone that the internet, that digital culture, that digital technologies are made for sharing. That those zeros and those ones cannot be stopped, cannot be blocked, unless you destroy all that we built, and turn our societies into police states or whatever things nobody would consciously choose to live in. So I think we're at a major turn in our societies. We have never been so much connected, and at the same time, there has never been such violent attacks on our freedom, such as ACTA, such as the reaction of the US government on WikiLeaks, for instance, such as what may be prepared for the upcoming G8 that will be hosted by France. I'm sorry, once again. Where Nicolas Sarkozy said several times that he wants to make it the G8 of a civilized internet, which is basically a term that was invented in China to describe the Chinese internet. So what those industries, allied with those politicians, are building at the moment has the potential to literally alter the shape of the internet and literally block us from doing what we want to do. And what we want to do is sharing. So once again, we have to explain it, we have to make it clear, and we have to stand for that right that we have of sharing the things we love. And yeah, that's it. Thank you. And I'm sure there are some questions and interventions. I saw a finger lifting from there. Is there a microphone?
Yeah, just one sec.
Oh.
Yeah.
Just an idea for the G8 summit, but I think you also thought about it. If there is this topic on the, wie heißt das, Tagesordnung? Agenda, is it possible to do a campaign to sensibilize the European Parliament members for that? But I think you are planning some kind of that. I don't know, is it on an island, or will it be viewable, that G8
It's
summit?
a kind of island. It's in Deauville in France, so it's some kind of island. I personally don't believe that physical actions such as going to that island, well, it was a metaphorical island, it's not geographically speaking an island, but there will be so much police forces around that it will become an island. So I don't believe that physical actions like going there with a raised fist and say no, 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 will be of any usefulness, but definitely we have to organize. I don't believe much into centralizing action, because I think the centralized models belong to the past. So I really think that we have to make it sure that everyone will be able to participate in its own way. We as La Quadrature du Net, we produce tools, we give ideas, we provide means for people to do things, but it's not exclusive. Anyone has the way to do their own. Of course, we will discuss, for instance, with our friends of Netzpolitik, and what's the name of that new Verein that was created today? Oh, I have a stick. Oh, yeah, you may be right. This and the CCC and Bits of Freedom in the Netherlands, and the Open Rights Group, and ex-GAE and the Free Culture Forum in Spain, and so on and so on. So if you ask me what action will it be, I cannot tell you today, because I still didn't find out. But it is clear that we need to organize, and that we need to use the internet for that. And yeah, stay tuned for some more exciting campaigning. Oh, yeah, there's.
Okay, a short statement from me. There's a lot of talking about the content side. So they should not be able to control the content, and therefore we should fight for the free internet, pretty much. Yeah. The main problem is that the internet itself cannot be free, because it's all based on commercial structures, and it's based on
Oh. Please don't die.
Like the infrastructure of the internet is actually really building our own internet.
Yeah. It may come sooner than later. There are lots of several interesting questions in what you asked. First of all is the question of the merger between telecom groups, telecom companies. There is no pure player internet service provider in Europe, I think, but they were all sucked in by telecom operators that are now merging with media groups and so on. So we have a concentration in internet providers that is comparable to the concentration in media group, and that should be addressed as a policy problem, as a policy question, and that's first point that I think is relevant. Then this concentration gives incentive for those actors to restrict more and more access, and that breaches to net neutrality, and that's another issue I could have talked about for 1 hour. And I really think we need to address this once again by policy, by declaring that internet is a commons, is common good, and therefore must be protected. Today in France was released a very good, sometimes good things happen in France, that's very rare, a very good parliamentary report about net neutrality. That's 2 members of the parliament, 1 conservative, right wing, and 1 socialist, left wing, that together released this 80 pages document with recommendations about how to efficiently protect net neutrality for freedom of expression, for innovation, for open business, and so on. We'll be working, probably tomorrow morning will be released, or English press release about it, along with translated bits of the report, and we'll try to publish more of it. So this is also one part of the answer. And another question that was contained here, and I'll try to address, is what will we do when they will have finished to break the internet into parts, when they will have turned the internet into television 2.0 and make it useless? Then this is the moment when we will have to reinvent the internet and rebuild it, maybe from scratch. We, the geeks, we, the hackers who built the internet once, I think we will be able to rebuild it and to build it again twice. So this is when we will put the antennas on the roof. This is when all the Freifunk people and open mesh people will be the new architects. And for this, we need an open spectrum policy that allows people to use airwaves for free without a license. And this is also one very good news that we obtained yesterday in the European Parliament. Those are amendments we pushed on a recommendation of the European Parliament about EU spectrum policy that got adopted. It has to be confirmed in plenary, but that literally allows for citizen usage of airwaves. So we might have a small window of opportunity here to rebuild the internet someday.
Yes, my name is Sandra von Lingen, and I have a legal background. I work for an association called GRUR, which is an academic association of 5,000 IP persons in the broadest sense, mostly lawyers, judges, but also from industry, also from copyright owners, the whole range, also creative people. And I'm responsible for international affairs. So I have for me, the European Commission's strategy is not so opaque, and I agree to a lot of points that you have raised, but I would like to add a few things, because I think there were a few things that you didn't maybe mention, and which go in the same direction. It is true that I think that on the national level, governments didn't really manage to enforce the way they wanted to, or to control. So they put it on the European level and on the international level. The whole ACTA process has shown that it has been out of, a democratic process. So this was noticed even by, let's say, conservative IP lawyers. And the other thing is that the European Commission right now, with a whole package of IP measures, is very much pushing IP protection at the moment. So there's a change at the moment. It's a whole package. It's not only file sharing or copyright. It's a patent law. It's a trademark, a whole review of the trademark system. So there's a lot of things going on. And what wasn't mentioned here, which is very important for you, is that Tilman Lüder, who is in charge, has been replaced by a nifty lobbyist. So this is something very relevant. So you can be prepared to a lot of counter wind, let's say, in Germany, Gegenwind. My point is, I think that, I work for an academic association. It's not a lobbyist association. And the most important academics in Germany are dealing with the same stuff than you. And you may know that they have signed a petition against ACTA. There's a whole group of academics in Europe that have signed a petition against it. And I think that there are three ways to, counter lobby, if you think so, or just counterbalance the tendency. It's the European Parliament, you have noticed it, so lobbying with the European Parliament representatives. Academics, I think you should try to contact or get in more closer touch with academics, because especially in Germany, you may not know, but I know because I know the actors at the Max Planck Institute and with Gruhr. There's a change of, let's say, of generation. So there are a lot of people who think more in the spirit than you do, and they are just changing their views, especially at the Max Planck Institute. It's a very important change in Germany. So this is, you should talk to these people if you want to put your views through, because they have a lot of influence near the European Commission. They talk to them every day, so they're really on a hello basis. And the third thing is, I think we should a little bit trust the courts, because I think that the courts do control a lot, and also on the German level, we have seen that they have turned down to a lot of things, and also the European Court of Justice. It's getting more difficult when the law is changed, so you have to block it before the law is changed. And I think this goes through a dialogue with, not with industry, it will be difficult, but with the academic world, and through this vehicle with the parliament. That is my impression, because this is my work, I do it every day. So people are listening, but it's going to be more difficult now, especially on the copyright sector. With this new person in charge, and this is clear.
I thank you for your comment. It's true that I should have mentioned that change in the European Commission, where that former IFPI, so the international lobby for phonogram producers, for record producers, become the person in charge of copyright in the European Commission is really a sign of something. It's true that, yeah, we're trying to get to talk with as many people as we can, but I take your point that going and talk to the academics may not be as, they may not be as conservative as I might have imagined. Also, when you mentioned other policies related to trademark and patents, it's obvious that, yeah, patents can go really wrong, especially when you talk of patents on seeds and things like that. But the main difference, I think, from patents, trademark, and copyright is that patents and trademarks mostly apply to corporations and economic actors. You could argue about software patents, but I think they're just a bug in the patent system. They should not exist. But copyright, for the first time in its history, is now turned against the public. It is turned against individuals. What was obvious 20 years ago was that copyright being based on the capacity of actors to produce copies. Who can produce copies of vinyls or CDs or cassette, high number of cassettes and so on, was only commercial actors. Now with digital technologies, when we all have in our pocket a device capable of making millions of copies per hour, then we become all producers of copies, and we become all regulated, so to say, by copyright. So this is why I think we really have an emergency with a copyright that is gone crazy, that is gone, a bit, because it is turning against the public, it is turned against individuals, and it is turned against usage that we have in our own private sphere, in our own apartments, or literally in our pockets. So I think this is why I only mentioned copyright. But I thank you again for your comment.
Okay, thank you very much.
Jérémie Zimmermann. We have to move on, I'm sorry. Thank you.